The Nashville Predators weekend back-to-back was a chance for some young players to fight for a roster spot. Today, we'll talk about what Zach L'Heureux has to do to earn his place back on the opening night roster.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our week shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders community and, of course, our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio. And friends, I have a pepper to my salt.
That's a new one. I'm Emma Lingan, and I am an NHL reporter and host for the Hockey News.
Well, the Nashville Predators had a weekend preseason back-to-back. It did result in 2 losses for the Predators. And while the points or lack thereof really don't matter today, we are going to talk about those games. We're going to share our preseason game observations, including our one word. We're also going to talk about one player in particular. We're going to talk about Zach L'Heureux, who could still be competing for a spot on that opening night roster. Finally, we are going to discuss and share with you the hockey player we would like to see come out of retirement to play just one more game for us. Before we dive into all of that, we do want to let you know today's episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So how does it feel being the pepper to my salt? We're workshopping it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I like some spice, so I think that it's appropriate. Yeah. I feel good about it.
You feel good about that? I will tell you, here's a fun fact that's not that fun and just a fact about Anne. We are actually a home that doesn't even buy pepper because you know how much we don't like spice.
That is true.
Don't.
You really do not like your spice. That's true.
We don't salt or pepper anything. My husband's father just moved down to the area, which we're super, super excited about. And when he comes over for dinner now, he grabs the salt and pepper, which reminds me, and I hope he doesn't listen, that I need to go buy pepper because the pepper in the pepper shaker is the pepper that was in the pepper shaker when we moved to this house 2 years ago. So adding pepper to Anne's shopping list, you all.
Yes. Note to self.
Note to self. Yeah, I just figure, one of our insiders is like, you guys have been partners in crime for a while. And I'm like, clearly you've met us. We've got a long list of crimes that we still have yet to come to fruition. But he was like, what about mixing it up? And I thought, well, let's try it on a Monday and see if we didn't startle some people into their week. So there you go.
Startled me, but I'm here for it. Yeah.
I forgot to give you a heads up. Peppa.
Fine. Better that way.
There you go. Well, the Nashville Predators had 2 preseason games this weekend. On Saturday night, they played the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sunday, they played the Carolina Hurricanes. Both were losses, but again, friends, it's the preseason. But because it's the preseason, that gives you practice. Emma and I are going to get into practice by sharing our one word to describe the preseason action. So, Emma, do you want to kick off and flex those one word muscles this morning, describing these preseason games that were, losses, but okay?
They were losses, but okay. I mean, I don't know. It would like, this sounds a little harsh for my first one, but say like yawn. I don't know.
Yeah.
It felt like a little bit like, okay, like not in that, like in an apathetic sense, but maybe a little bit because it is preseason. It doesn't tell us much.
Right.
I think what we really learned from these games is what we already assumed to be true, which is that with Nick Hague being out, we're going to see Adam Wilsby getting a more increased role on the blue line, which again, kind of what we expected. So no real surprise there. I mean, you did get, of course, Tanner Mollendijk back in the mix back there as well, which is good to see. But still, after a couple games of him, I am not anywhere closer to saying yes or no in terms of whether he will make the opening night roster. So kind of a
Yeah, it was 2 games that they didn't have a revelation. There was no revelation. I think I agree with you. I think the biggest takeaway from this weekend is that the coaching staff feels as confident that Adam Wilsby could be a good defensive partner while he needs to be for Roman Josi, as we did on Friday's show, if you'll recall. So look at us coaching
we
them.
know things sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. My one word, and again, I feel rusty. I feel very rusty with this. My one word is carb load, as in that's my advice to the Nashville Predators before a game: carb load. So you stop going to the penalty box looking for a snack, because oh my gosh, you all. Preseason, of course, is always messy because you don't have players that have chemistry, and you have young players that are pushing very hard, and the speed is a little bit different. So you do end up with a lot more penalties. But this was something that was a problem for Nashville last regular season. They were 5th in the league in total penalty minutes. Now, they were 7th on the penalty kill, which I guess if you keep doing it over and over again, you do get very good at the penalty kill. But Nashville needed more time and more success at 5-on-5 last season. And so I just felt a little bit twitchy watching the penalties roll in. I think Tampa Bay had like 7 power play opportunities, and it was a messy game for both teams. And Nashville had almost as many power play opportunities. Same thing in Carolina. But I hate watching penalty hockey, especially after last year. Like, I think there are just going to be some hangovers from last year that are going to feel unsettling for me. The penalty minutes felt very unsettling this weekend. I would just rather you didn't. Just throw
Something too about like penalties in the preseason irk me even more. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like,
What are you
stop.
doing?
This doesn't even matter. Stop it. Like,
Yes.
which I know is a short-sighted and oversimplified way of looking at it, but like anything that happens in the preseason, like any kind of negative occurrence or any kind of like inconvenience, I'm like, come on, it's preseason. Like, come on, let's not do this, please.
No,
So
clean that up. Clean that up.
Clean it
What are you
up.
doing? Yeah. And I do think I have a little bit of a penalty hangover from last year because like there we were. There we were. And the penalty kill was one of the few exciting things that you got to watch unfold on the ice. So that was the upside of it. But yeah, you just don't want to see it. And there are good penalties to take, not like you said, really not in the preseason, but these were just kind of, your tripping, interference, slashing kind of penalties. So you just kind of want to see a little bit cleaner hockey. You mentioned Tanner Mollendijk. There was a couple of players who played back to back, which I thought was very interesting and kind of a smart move by the coaching staff. Just, okay, this is welcome to the NHL. This is how you have to perform a lot of times in the season. And I thought it was really good to see Tanner Mollendijk play back to back. Yeah, I'm with you. He is as advertised. He is as advertised. I don't know if there was necessarily something that made me go, well, hell yeah, he is going to make the roster, because you have so many people on the blue line competing. Spencer Stastny is another one that played. I believe he played both games, but I would have to double check that. But I know he was on the top pairing against Carolina. So just there's still some good competition and no necessarily clear answers when it comes to roster construction yet. Now, that roster is going to get pared down as we go, but there are a few players that I think are making it very interesting and who are giving the coaching staff some things to consider, pluses and minuses too. So yeah, I thought it was, another 180 minutes of hockey over the weekend.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Coming up, there are so many young players competing for their opportunity to play at the NHL level. One familiar face, though, is absolutely taking nothing for granted when it comes to that opening night roster. Coming up, we're going to talk about the ups and downs of training camp for Zach L'Heureux. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether you are talking 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you have put off organizing your finances, Monarch is the tool for you. It does all of the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with our code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, Emma, talking about, what did we learn over the weekend and what did we see from different players? One of the players that we haven't maybe seen as much as we wanted to over training camp was Zach L'Heureux. He was injured. And it's all blurred together I think it was an intra-squad thing, a practice, and stepped out for a little bit they called it maintenance. I don't think there was any real official word, but he was out for a little bit. And so got back in the lineup this weekend. I do want to mention something of note about another player. And we talked about this just really briefly before we recorded. No Matthew Wood this weekend. Matthew Wood kind of took an awkward fall at the Gold Star Showcase on Thursday. He did not practice Friday. The word from the team on Friday is he was still being evaluated. No update since then, since they were on the road. So we'll keep you posted on that. That is a player, Matthew Wood, that really was like the joy giver of the preseason, ladies and gentlemen. Loved Matthew Wood.
He really has been, yeah. And I think still being evaluated in PR speak means that he's okay, but we don't want to risk injuring him any further, so we're just going to hold him out of these games. So I think that's kind of what it means, especially with the travel involved. It's going to be better use of his time to stay back and get treatment, get physical therapy, whatever it is that he's dealing with. That's going to be a better use of his time. So still being evaluated means like, hey, he's not playing today anyway, so we don't have to give you an official diagnosis. Right. So it really is kind of a day by day thing for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully we'll, get some word or see him even better back out on the ice later this week when they have some practices and are back together at training camp. But just of note that Matthew Wood was not playing this weekend. And it is also of note, and the notes get bigger when you put them together, that as of the time of this recording, Zachary L'Heureux, not Zachary L'Heureux, Luke Evangelista, as of the time of this recording. See, all these young people, all these young sprouts. Nothing on Luke Evangelista, friends. Just sitting here waiting for Luke. Just sitting here waiting. Still waiting. Yeah. Now, one player who we did get a chance to see, Zachary L'Heureux. I mentioned that he was injured earlier in training camp. But Zach L'Heureux doing better, back at it. We got a chance to talk to him on Friday. He did play in the Gold Star Showcase on Thursday, and then we got a chance to sit down and talk with him at training camp on Friday. We talked to Zach L'Heureux about the pressure coming into training camp when you played 62 games last season and now you have to make the roster again. So he talked a little bit about that. He also talked about what it feels like to have gotten some NHL minutes under his belt last season. This is what Zach had to say.
Well, now I got the pressure of making the NHL again, so it's a little different. Obviously last year was, trying to stay the whole year, and then there's moments where I felt I got maybe a little comfortable. So I think coming into camp this year, I didn't want to take anything for granted. I think I'm coming ready to play every day. I'm fighting for a spot, and I know that. There's a lot of young guys, a lot of good competition. Guys are showing up, and you can see it out there. You can see it, in preseason games and stuff. So I think, I got a big opportunity here on the weekend to probably play a game or two and showcase what I've got and what I've improved on. So I'm looking forward to that. It's really, really motivating. Like, obviously going home this summer and feeling all that love, that support, and just kind of seeing, not that my life's changed, but just how people see me now that, obviously I've played in the NHL. It's a little different. So I think I've got a good support system, and I want to show that I can play at this level for a long time. So I think I definitely got a foot in the door, like you said. I played a lot of games. I've showcased my skill and what I'm able to do. I just want to show that I can improve now. And obviously it's a big year coming up for everybody, but for me personally, it's going to be huge. So I'm hoping just to, make the team out of camp this year and go from there.
So Zach L'Heureux did get a chance to play in both games over the weekend. Emma, what stands out to you about what we saw from Zach L'Heureux this weekend? Or what does he have to show to be that Vivian Ward sure thing? He's going to be a sure thing on the opening night roster.
Yeah, I think I liked what he said at the beginning there, where he talked about there were moments where he felt like he got comfortable. He got a little too comfortable last year. I think that that's important to not, and listen, not just for him, just in general. It's a good feeling, or it's good to know that guys are coming into camp this year not feeling like they're spot safe, because there is going to be competition. It's going to be, you're going to need to prove yourself. Like, nothing is owed to you. Nothing is just going to be handed to you. So I think it's good that there's that sentiment, whether it's Zach L'Heureux or other kind of guys who we would consider maybe fringe players on the roster, that it's like, okay, good. They don't think that they're just going to be handed a roster spot.
Oh, yeah.
And they recognize that there are going to be a lot of, a lot of guys, young guys coming up competing for their spots. So nothing is going to be guaranteed. I think as far as what we need to see from him, I mean, you want to see a little bit more than you saw from him last year. You want to see a little bit more offense. And, we know that the hits and the physicality are there, but I think maybe a little bit more scoring touch is going to be important. And I think that you want to see that he is not too comfortable in his spot.
Yeah.
You want to see that he is still trying to prove something, which it sounds like he is. So that's positive.
Yeah. He had talked a lot last year about how stressful and how much pressure it was to stay in the NHL, because you get called up and you think, this is it. This is the moment that I've waited for. And you play one NHL game and it is amazing. But you know what you do then? Then you play 2 NHL games, and then you play 3 and 4. And playing your 15th and 16th NHL game when you are on that bubble between the AHL and NHL, there is so much pressure to perform well enough to stay there. And I think that was something that really weighed on L'Heureux last season, was like, I forget that I can go back at any minute. And so it is good to hear him say, look, I know that there are young players on this roster. I know that the 5th overall pick wants to play in the NHL. I know that Matthew Wood, who we only saw 5 or 6 games last season, wants to make the opening night roster. So you do like hearing that there is that hunger. I think L'Heureux talked about in the media availability things that he worked on over the off season. And for him, it was like moving my feet. I am a better hockey player when I move my feet, which is feedback that Andrew Brunette is really big on with young players. And he also, we had talked about this. There were several players that came into camp that you could tell had really bulked up. And I think Zach L'Heureux is one of those players that really said, okay, if the role that I'm going to be asked to play is going to be more physical, I am going to be ready for that role. But I agree with you, Emma, and you and I have talked about this, and this is one of the smaller things, but things that I worry about this season is that Zach L'Heureux is not pigeonholed, because there is offense to his game, friends. And we didn't see it much. Last season, he had 5 goals, 15 points in 62 games. But let me tell you, in Milwaukee, and I understand the AHL and NHL are different and scoring is different in those, but in his last full season in Milwaukee, the 23-24 season, he played 66 games. He had 19 goals. In the playoffs, he was a point per game player. He had 10 goals in 15 games, 5 assists. This is somebody who can play offense. And one of my biggest fears was Zach L'Heureux, who came back with more muscle, and, don't pigeonhole him. For the love. Don't pigeonhole him into that fourth line grinder. I can't. I don't want to watch that happen, Emma.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing, hopefully, like, again, I don't want to, it's, obviously Luke Evangelista being MIA right now is a negative thing. Matthew Wood potentially being injured is a negative thing. However, if there is a silver lining to come from those things,
Yeah.
potentially a guy like Zach L'Heureux showing up, stepping up, showing that he can be more than just that fourth line grinder and earning those opportunities in more elevated roles. So
Yeah.
I think that, it is good. I agree with you. I think he is noticeably bigger this year. I
Yes.
he bulked up. I think Spencer Stastny is noticeably bigger this year.
Yeah.
Tanner Dyke, like all of those guys definitely worked on adding some muscle over the offseason. So I think that, they're taking it seriously. They're getting bigger. They're getting stronger. I think that's more of a sign of just trying to keep up with the more, today's NHL is extremely physical, and
It
you need
is.
guys like the Sam Bennett's and the Matthew Tkachuks to really just go out there and knock some heads together. So you can do both. That's the thing. And you need to do both in today's NHL. And so I think Zach L'Heureux can. I really do think he can. I just hope he makes the most of these opportunities that he's getting
Yeah.
right.
And I agree with you. I don't love the fact that we don't have Luke Evangelista here. I hate the fact that Matthew Wood is being evaluated, but I don't feel like under normal circumstances Zach L'Heureux is going to get the same offensive opportunity as a Matthew Wood. Now, they're two very different players, and I do understand that. But you are not going to see the offensive upside of Zach L'Heureux, and I mean this respectfully, if he is on the fourth line with Cole Smith and Michael McCarron. And I mean that respectfully. To Cole Smith and Michael McCarron, who play very specific roles and do a very good job with it. But that is underselling the potential for Zach L'Heureux. And if you are looking to turn the page for this team and say, you know what, it is not happening now, you need to know what he is capable offensively for the not yet. And I don't know that he is going to get an opportunity with the full roster to show off what he could bring to that offensively. And I know people say, well, he is what the numbers say he is. Not necessarily, you all, but also yes, but still not always true. So yeah, this is one to watch. The other player that jumped out at me when we're talking about offense that is very interesting, Cole O'Hara. Excuse me, Cole O'Hara. Like,
I tried to tell you all this is a kid that the organization has been very high on. I got the chance to watch him play at UMass when he was still there. I think it was 2 years ago. Really, really good, strong offensive talent. And so this is a guy that I'd say don't sleep on Cole O'Hara. I mean, he's one of those guys that you can tell came into camp on a mission, and
Yes.
he's not leaving anything out there. I mean, he is
Yeah.
just trying to give it his all, and you can definitely see that. And I think those are the kinds of guys you need to see at camp, because I think it makes the guys around him play better as well.
Yeah. I loved in the game against Tampa Bay, and I should have looked this up before we recorded, but he had time, I believe, with Philip Forsberg on a line. He played some top line minutes and did not look like, oh, hey, look, there's the young kid trying to keep up with Philip Forsberg. And that is not a quantifiable statistic, but that is a very high compliment to what we saw from Cole O'Hara. You mentioned he played at UMass. I went back and I was looking at some of his numbers his last season, last year at UMass. Played 40 games, 22 goals, 51 points. He led the entire team in goals, assists, and points. I mean, Cole O'Hara, forgive me, you have tricks up your hockey sweater that I was not aware of. So this is a player to keep an eye on. As the roster pairs down, I think this may be the offensive Tanner Mollendijk that we've seen the last 2 seasons, where he's going to stick around a really long time. And I think rightfully so. Yeah. Very impressed with Cole O'Hara. Yeah. Coming
Again,
up,
one of those good things that could come from guys like Luke Evangelista not being around, guys
yeah.
like not Zach L'Heureux, like Matthew Wood potentially being injured. Other guys, of course, like Zach L'Heureux missed time in camp.
Mhm.
Ozzy Weisblatt missed time in camp. Of course, very different circumstances, but still, it makes things a little bit more interesting in this forward group. Remember before camp, we were like, well, this isn't going to be that interesting. There's really only one forward spot available. Now it's getting a little interesting. So
It is getting interesting. And the players competing for those opportunities are keeping it interesting in training camp, you
yeah,
all. It's
yeah.
interesting. Coming up, we're going to talk about what we expect to see from Nashville when the season really starts. And then we are going to turn the page, friends. A modern day hockey legend took the ice one last time over the weekend. Coming up, we're going to talk about Marc Andre Fleury and share which NHL player we would want to see back in action just one more time. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love how FanDuel gives you so many different ways to play. You can build parlays, try out those player props, and follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you are a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, Emma, a lot we could cover with this, so we'll just rapid fire it. What do you expect to see from the Predators this week in training camp? I'm guessing we're going to come around to some more roster moves here. What are your expectations for this week?
I think, we had talked about what we wanted to see. Like, it's fantastic to see all of this improvement, this progress, some surprises from the young players, and that's great. It does keep it interesting. But I mean, I do think, especially as the roster starts to pare down, it gets a little smaller. You do want to see a little bit more cohesion with the veterans. You want to see noted improvement over last year. I'm not saying that the veterans have looked bad in camp thus far by any means, but I'm just saying it's a little bit harder to get a read on it when there's still so many players, like 52 players in camp right now. You know that that's not the group you're going to be going into the season with, so it's just a little bit harder to kind of gauge where they're at. So as the roster does start to get smaller, I will be very much looking forward to seeing how the veterans are working together, because we talk about, oh, well, the young kids look good. They look comfortable. Cole O'Hara looks like he looks comfortable next to Philip Forsberg. That's great. Okay, but does Steven Stamkos look comfortable next to Philip Forsberg? That's what I want to
That's
see,
what we want to
because
know.
that's what is going to make a difference this year. So I think, we'll start to get hopefully a little bit clearer picture as eventually when AHL training camp starts, there's going to be sort of a mass exodus of players from big training camp so they can get to Milwaukee in time for the start of that training camp. So I think once that big group is gone, you'll hopefully start to see a little bit more of like an identity coming
Yes.
into view. And listen, I would love an identity, because after 84 years last year, we still did not have one. So
Nope.
would love to
Nope.
see one.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's really what I'm ready to see. I'm ready to see some consistency in practices with lines playing together. We have gotten that with Bunting and Holla and Marchessault. Now I want to see a couple more lines that I'm like, okay, I see it. I think we're going to go with that. So yeah, that's something that we're going to be watching for closely this week as training camp, kind of moves along a little closer to the regular season, but it is preseason. And every so often in the preseason, you just get this gem of a moment. And I don't particularly like the Pittsburgh Penguins, but I do have to give them kudos, because over the weekend, the Penguins signed Marc Andre Fleury to a ceremonial PTO. I hope he did get paid, just FYI. To come back with the Penguins and play one more preseason game. And this was so amazing. Marc Andre Fleury had a special mask made for the night. He was asked, when do you want to play? He said, I'm going to play in the third period so that if we lose, I can come, help us come back and win the game, stopped all 8 shots he faced. I also do want to give just a personal shout out to my cousin Emma, who skipped school to see him at practice on Friday and made a big sign that she played hooky, and made it onto the Penguin social media site. I was going through social media and I was like, that looks just like Emma. Yeah, it was. Shout out to her mom, Ashley, for letting her skip school. Come on, girl. I love that.
Oh, so worth it.
So Marc Andre Fleury, to get to see Marc Andre Fleury one more time in a Penguins uniform. Oh my gosh, Emma. Like, sometimes the NHL just can't find their way through the path in the light, but every so often there's a moment where you're like, this is the beauty. This is the beauty of this sport.
And I have to really give the Penguins organization so much credit for the way this whole thing was orchestrated, because this is going to be a rough year for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no sugarcoating it. They are like fully into this rebuild now. I think they've acknowledged that, the hope that they could go for it one more time with Letang, Malkin, and Crosby. It's like, it's probably not realistic. I mean, there's talk of Malkin and Letang even getting traded potentially. So, I mean, it's going to be a bumpy year in Pittsburgh. But to give the fan base this kind of like last moment of joy, nostalgia. I mean, I defy you to find anyone. I don't care how you feel about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Find someone who has a bad thing to say about Marc Andre Fleury. Like, you can't. And I mean, I have had the privilege of meeting him, talking to him, when the first time I met him, when I was working in Carolina, and I was standing on the glass, and he was playing for Vegas at the time. He was the backup that night. And so he came out to sit in his little bar stool that was right next to where I was standing, because in Carolina, the bench is on the opposite side from the doors. So, he had to sit kind of by himself. And normally the backup goalies, they just sit there and they don't say anything, because then we're like, this is my job. I sit here, I watch the game on my little TV screen, and it's fine.
Yeah.
He came out, he tried to offer me his seat. He's like, oh, is this your seat? He's in full pads, like full gear. I'm like, no, that is very much your seat, future Hall of Famer Marc Andre Fleury. Please sit. And he is like chit-chatting with me. He's asking where I'm from, how I got into this. We talked about, I did grow up a Penguins fan. I was raised a Penguins fan. So I talked about how, when he was with the Penguins, and they did a promo with Giant Eagle,
Come
where
on.
they had the Flurry Flakes cereal. I had a box at home. I texted my mom. I was like, send me a picture of it. I want to show it to him. And I'm like, he probably didn't care, but he acted like he did. And it's like, that was very nice of him. So again, that's just my little flower story. But I mean, he's just such a nice guy, a funny guy. Kelsey Surmatz, who covers the Penguins for the Hockey News, posted a video from practice on Friday, where she had asked him, what's your advice for, like these young goalies, these young players trying to, compete for a spot. And he said, well, like be ready because I'm coming to take your job. Like obviously joking, but just like really good on the Penguins organization to do this
Yes.
for their fans.
Yes.
Especially because yes, it was for Fleury, but really it was for the fans to acknowledge that like this is a special group in their organizational history with Flower, with
Mm.
Crosby, Malkin, Letang, getting them all together one last time. Just beautiful.
Huge. You're right. It was so beautiful. And kudos to that organization and to Marc Andre Fleury. You're right. There is nobody that can say a bad word about Marc Andre Fleury. And if they did, we would all call them liar, liar, pants on fire. This whole experience watching it unfold got Emma and I thinking about like, is there an NHL player that we would want to see come back one more time? And of course, you know what we do. We reach out to our Locked On Predators insiders community and say, what player would you love to see get a Marc Andre Fleury one more time in a home uniform? And the answers were so interesting. A lot of people said Pekka Rinne, which it's the same thing. Like, find me one person who has ever said an unkind word about Pekka Rinne. It will not happen. A lot of people, and I loved this one, was Shea Weber. Yes, technically, he's in the Hall of Fame. Technically, I don't believe he is officially. I think he's still getting paid to play hockey, or is that done this season?
I think it's either this year or next year.
Next year, yeah. But they're like, put him in a Preds jersey, because the idea that was not the last jersey he wore in a game, people are like, give us Shea Weber back in a Preds jersey one more game. Can you imagine? Nashville would eat that up. It would be so amazing. Just one of those shots, Shea. Just one shot.
That's the thing is so Shea and I did not overlap in Nashville.
Mhm.
By the time I got to Nashville, he was no longer with the organization. So I don't think I've ever actually seen him play in person. So
Mhm.
I would like that too, because you hear about, and of course I've seen video highlights and everything of the slap shot heard around the world, and I would love to be able to experience that in person, because that would be a good one for sure. That was the
Yeah.
first one that came to mind for me.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing PK Subban back. I know he was not everybody's favorite, but he was mine as a theater major. PK Subban and I, we speak the same language. One of our insiders had a really unique one, and I loved this. This insider said, my favorite player as a kid growing up on Long Island was Mike Bossy. Have never seen a scorer like him. He only played 10 years until back problems ended his career, but the first 9 of those were 50+ goal seasons. A record. He passed away from lung cancer a few years ago, but I would have loved to see him play one more time. So I looked, I don't go that far back, and that's not a judgment on age. I just didn't come to hockey early. So I looked up Mike Bossy, played from 77 to 87 for the Islanders, won the Calder in 78, most goals by a rookie with just a mere 58 goals that season. Okay, I see you. Conn Smythe winner, of course, won Stanley Cup. He's only one of 2 players to have scored consecutive Stanley Cup game-winning goals. And just as a little tidbit, he was the 5th child out of 10. So let's all just say a prayer for Mike's mom. Because wow, Mike's mom. But I think that is so interesting. I'm just curious when people hear that. We tend to go Pekka Rinne, Shea Weber, especially here in Nashville. But yeah, it's really interesting. So if you have a player that you would love to see come back for just one more game that you could watch, let us know who that is. Drop us a comment on this video or tag us on social media at LO_Predators. We would love to hear who that Marc Andre Fleury player is for you. Emma, before we wrap up this episode on our Monday, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for our Monday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. Salt and pepper. Hope you have a great day. We'll be back here tomorrow. We'll see you then.